experience of playing the piece it's just been incredible. Of course, there are a lot of very painful moments because it's very difficult and physically, and I was almost killed. But I just the experience. I mean, the music I experienced through performing is just it makes me feel like I'm alive.
Welcome to another episode of Contrabass Conversations, your show covering life on the low end of the spectrum. I'm your host, Jason Heath. I'm so glad to have you here today. And visit our site at contrabassconversations.com for all the details about what's going on here. I'd love to hear from you. Send me an email, feedback@contrabassconversations.com. Let me know a little bit about yourself, any ideas for the show. That would be great. And I know you're going to love today's episode featuring Yung-chiao Wei. I actually had the chance to play with Yung-chiao in Japan back in 2000 at the Pacific Music Festival. And she was finishing up her time at the New World Symphony then, and she was just about to start her position at Louisiana State University. And she has not slowed down ever since 2000. 2 solo albums, a Carnegie Hall recital, and this amazing double bass program she's built in Baton Rouge. I spoke with George Amarim recently. I had a whole weekend teaching recently on the podcast, and George teaches at University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. We were talking about building a dynamic double bass scene in his area in South Texas, and Yung-chiao has been doing that in Louisiana for the past decade and a half. Her students have done so many cool things. They've won auditions for both principal bass and assistant principal bass in Baton Rouge Symphony and the Acadiana Symphony, assistant principal bass of the Taipei Symphony. Her undergrad students have gone on and received full scholarships at Juilliard, Yale, Eastman, and Cincinnati Conservatory. And one of her students, Yuling Lee, has been teaching at the Cincinnati Conservatory. So we dig into her teaching, we dig into some physical issues she's had to overcome and how she's changed her bass playing to accommodate that, how playing a piece like the Brahms F Major Cello Sonata makes her feel like she's alive, organizing the Louisiana Bass Festival, so many other things. Such a great person. It's so great to catch up with her. And you'll hear some tracks from her most recent solo CD, and you can check out links in the show notes for both of her solo CDs. I'd also like to thank our sponsor, D'Addario Strings. And you can hear me playing my set of D'Addario Zayek strings in the background here. I'm really liking these strings. They're great for arco. They're great for pizzicato. They've got a nice growl. They're good hybrid strings. I do a lot of both styles of playing, and I love them. D'Addario just set up a string giveaway for Contrabass Conversations listeners. And I'll have a link in the show notes for this, but you can go to contrabassconversations.com/strings. If you're in the car or you're on the treadmill or you're doing dishes or whatever, contrabassconversations.com/strings. Fill out some information. You'll be enrolled in a string giveaway, which is very cool. One of the many things that I've been talking about with them going forward with the podcast. All right, here we go with our interview with Yung-chiao Wei. It's interesting, like Rufong is from Taiwan, right? Isn't she?
Yes.
Okay. And then I also know another female Taiwanese bass player named Xiaolan. I don't know where she ended up.
I need to tell you this story, okay? We all went to the same middle schools. Same elementary school with Xiaolan as well.
No.
Same middle school in Taiwan. Same city. We studied with exactly the same teacher.
Who was that teacher? Because that teacher needs an award. I mean, that's amazing.
her name is Claudia Chen. Mm-hmm. I'm always heartbroken when I talk about her because she is our first teacher, Xiaolan, and Rufang and me, our first teacher. Mm-hmm. And she taught us when she was only 23 years old.
No, really?
Yeah, she is a member of the National Symphony Orchestra, and she is so loving, so patient, and we just love her. And she really encouraged me to take lessons with, like her teachers, and she encouraged to come abroad to study.
Yeah.
So I came here when I was 16 years old, and then, I went to Interlaken. And then she introduced me, Rufang. She said, because Rufang is 4 years younger than me. So
okay.
So I didn't see her in middle school. I mean, we are not there at the same time, but we studied with the same teacher.
Okay.
And she told me that Rufang is a very talented bass player and needs to come to U.S. to study.
Yeah. Okay.
So then I talked to Rufang about Interlaken, and she came to Interlaken as well. So I overlapped with Rufang at Interlaken.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes. And, she passed away like 10 years ago because she was struggled with cancer, and she passed away only when she was 40 or 42 years old.
Oh,
yeah. But I mean, yeah, anyway, but she's just amazing. So we all study with the same teacher, come from the same city.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
That is great. Well, that's such a cool thing. Yeah. Like the impact that like one teacher can have, like she probably had no idea what you and Rufang would be up to, years later. It's amazing. Right. I'd love to, maybe we can start just that decision of coming over to the States. Like what how did you discover Interlaken? Like when did you first learn of it?
Yeah, well, our school system is different in Taiwan. Mm-hmm. And we have this special gifted music program where we have to take all the courses, like a conservatory, major instruments, secondary theory, history, and orchestra, all that stuff. And in addition to all the academic works, we have to, do exactly the same thing as other students. So when I studied high school in Taiwan, it just becomes, the coursework was so difficult. I felt like I couldn't practice as much as I like to. Mm-hmm. I could only, manage to practice 30 minutes or 1 hour a day. And, I really wanted to be a professional musician. Mm-hmm. I made a decision when I was 16 years old. So I just asked my parents, I really need to come to the U.S. to study. At that time, I didn't know Interlaken. A very good friend of mine, she is now the principal horn of the National Symphony in Taiwan.
Okay.
Her teacher introduced her to study at Idaho School of Music in California.
Sure, yeah.
Yes, so it's a boarding school. So I went with her as well because I have friends, so I know that I won't be too scared to come to a foreign country. So I spent 1 year in Isomata. So, but that was like back in 1988 or 89, and they didn't have the bass teacher there was very old, and he did not give me weekly lessons all the time because he was just sick very often. So I felt like I couldn't really learn something, and I needed a lot of instructions back then. So
sure.
and then I find Interlaken, so I came to Interlaken for 2 more high school years.
Okay. And were you, so you had discussed, because I know you started early on piano and you're playing flute, and you must have not been playing bass that long when you came over to the U.S., right?
Yes. I studied piano when I was 6 or 7 years old. And, in this music program, we started in 3rd grade. We have to pick a minor, so I played flute as a minor. Because I didn't know any other instrument. I only know piano. And my mom knows flute because she thinks flute is more suitable for a girl to play.
Okay.
so I had to play flute. But I never liked it. And in 5th grade, we started to play in the orchestra. And one of my best friends, she is also my pianist. We performed more than 30 years together. She was major in piano and minor in flute, exactly, like me.
Right.
And she said, she told me, well, bass is cool, it's big. Do you want to learn it with me? I'm like, okay, sure. Well, so that's the reason I started to play bass, just to hang out with friends, And then she keeps playing piano, and I switched to bass.
I love that. Well, it's like the opposite of flute, right? It's funny. I just started a student yesterday. It was her first bass lesson, and I always ask, because they'd already rented a bass, and so I'm just always curious. I'm like, why bass? Awesome, good choice. And she said, she was like, well, my sister plays flute and my other sister plays violin, and I don't want to play these little instruments, so she totally went for the bass.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a very good reason, because at that time I thought, bass is huge, and I was only 11 or 12, and I was thinking, well, I just want to know what I can get out of this instrument, because it's so big. 1989, we only have cassette players.
Right.
So we didn't have any more information on actual bass playing. So I didn't know what the bass playing can be like back then.
Yeah, isn't that amazing? I mean, you think back like 1989, right around that's not really that long ago. But if you think about what somebody like now, you like all the things you can point to, it's amazing. Right. Wow.
It's amazing, yeah, I know. But bass is big and it's challenging, and someone like me, I like challenges.
Yeah.
I just play the bass.
Well, you've got a little bit on your website. I was reading about your thumb and your little fingers on your hands and how they're short. So like, when did you always kind of know that those were shorter, and like how did that affect bass playing for you?
Yeah, it's very difficult. I didn't know I had little finger when I started the piano lessons. When I was 8 or 9 years old, my teacher always yelled at me and asked me to, have a curved finger. And then I just found it so difficult. And then I was looking at others' hands. I always thought my little finger is normal, because I didn't know. I had no clue. And then I look at my friend's hand. I just realized, my little finger is different than anyone else. But I never. That's one of the reasons I decided to focus on the bass, because I can only barely reach octaves on piano. And there are a lot of repertoire, it requires big hands on piano. And on bass, I think, I can shift.
Sure.
Okay, shifting, it's easier for me. And it's just, throughout the student studies, I faced so much struggles. I couldn't play with big tone, and because I had a lot of tension. I was short. It was so difficult, and my hand was injured all the time, literally all the time, especially in New World Symphony. Because I was working on so much extras. We have a lot of playing, and at that time I didn't discover so much yoga and Tai Chi horse dance as I was doing right now. So the side of the palm close to my little finger, it always swells, and I just have so much injury all the time.
So you started doing yoga. Was yoga a help for you? Okay.
Yes, yoga. It helps a lot. It helps to reduce a lot of the tension. And actually, throughout the years, because I have to deal with the injury, then it actually becomes an advantage for me to learn that there's certain part of muscle or things I shouldn't use.
Okay.
But it kind of enabled me to use larger part of muscle or joint.
Oh, right.
So in my playing, I actually have to use a lot of transform the body weight more rather than other bass players with, bigger build.
Right. So you feel like you're using like back and shoulders and that sort of thing more to just sort of propel? Okay.
Yes, all the time. And I sit in a certain way. I'm trying to focus on how, to incorporate more core and how I can, when I dig in, I can use my body weight. It's just all kind of things. Combination of chi, energies, and imaginations, actually.
Did you change how you were holding the bass? Did you go a higher setup, lower setup, or anything? Did you do anything actually with the bass to sort of help with that problem?
Yes, I changed the set. I'm short, so I can only use a shorter stool. Okay, it's just a shorter setup, but you just have to find the right balance, I think. I explore a lot, and then I finally find the way that's most comfortable for me and most just more reasonable. It just works very well for me, so that everything can be easy. And I think every bass player needs to find that the most effortless way of playing the bass. Most importantly, you have to find the right setup.
Yeah,
standing or sitting.
So like you were in New World and you were practicing a ton. And how did your practicing change? Like when you started doing yoga, did you start like changing the way you set up your practice time too?
Well, I think when I was a student, I practiced too much.
Okay.
I practiced 7 or 8 hours, 6 to 8 hours a day. I practiced a lot.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And, at Interlochen, I was a double major, so I practiced 4 hours on piano and 4 hours on bass every day. Okay, not 6 days a week, every day. I was just crazy. I was just practicing all the time. Yeah, and then I focused on bass at Eastman, and I practiced at least 6 hours a day. Okay, so I always try to find the easiest way to play the bass, but still, with that amount of time I put on, it's just, there will be certain injuries. But I was not aware of that. Yes, but in World Symphony we have almost double rehearsal 5 hours, and sometimes we have one rehearsal which is 3 hours. Mm-hmm. So, in addition to 3 or 5 hours of rehearsal, I practice another 3 or 4 hours.
Okay, that's a lot of bass playing.
Every day.
Yeah, wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
So of course I enjoy a lot. And then when I started to teach, I have to, really balance the way I practice. And then I started to practice less.
Okay.
And I think actually more. I always, trying to think a lot when I practice. But I read a lot more, think a lot more, and I have to find and analyze the way I play. So the process of teaching, I analyze the way of my playing, and I incorporate that into my own practice schedule as well. So it worked.
Wow. So what, and you've had so many successful students. It's amazing. I was like going through on your website. You got people just all over so what do you tell these students in terms of practicing? Like, do you give them general guidelines for how long or what they should work on? Like, what do you tell your students?
Yes, I tell them, not to. You also have to know. You have to have a goal.
Yeah.
You have to know what you are practicing for, and you don't practice more than 3 hours.
Okay.
Okay. If you have a day long, you have a competition. You can spend more time, but you have to be more sensitive with. Always practice with great best posture and relaxed position all the time. Yes, and I produce a set of warm-up routine. Mm-hmm. So I tell them, you can practice this. This routine is kind of a way to help them to. I have them start with yoga and Tai Chi horse stance for 5 to 15 minutes. Okay, and then start so that they are doing something without the bass, and then they pick up their bass and then trying to incorporate the Tai Chi horse stance into the technical warm-up routines, starting with long tones and to prepare for shifting exercises. Okay. And the skills and all some of the Petrarchy warm-up routine, I think is very helpful. Mm-hmm. So I told them you have to have this routine. If you have only 3 hours of practicing time, you have to, practice those routines for at least 30 minutes. Okay. Okay. But I also told them when I was at Eastman, when I practice 6 hours a day, I spend 2 hours just to focusing on my warm-up and techniques, long tone and scales, all the technique stuff I have to work on. Sure. So it depends on, the amount of time they have.
If you give them like 3 hours, like 30 minutes, is that kind of warm up? Okay, great.
Right. So 3 hours is about 30 minutes, and then they have to, because they have a lot of repertoire they have to work on. If they only work on one piece, maybe you can do 1 hour and then spend 2 hours on the piece they're working on. It really depends on what they are facing.
Yeah, well, I'd love to. This is I love hearing about this your approach here. How does it change, like from freshman year as they go through the years? Like, is more of that percentage devoted to technique early on, or is it always like how does that work for you?
Yes, in freshman year, I mean, I always, whenever there's a new student, very rare I have a student who does not have any tension.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Right.
I know exactly. I mean, bass is a big instrument.
Yeah.
So the first semester, I always focusing on how they should, just to prepare them on the concept of playing the bass using the most relaxed way possible. Mm-hmm. And so usually the first semester, I spend a lot of time to make sure they have the right position. They can play the bass the best way possible. Mm-hmm. And then gradually, I mean, sometimes, every student, they react differently. Right. And some they don't like to, they like to play music more. So sometimes I still give them certain music so that they can apply the technique. Yeah. Yeah, in the music, of course. Yeah.
Isn't that interesting how some students react differently? Some students, they would be perfectly happy to spend 3 hours on technique. I mean, they're just like their brain work. And then some people, if they're not working on like a beautiful phrase or something, it's like they just don't engage with the bass the same way.
Yes, right. And I find a lot of American-born students, including my son who is 13 years old. He does not like the method book. He does not like the position book.
Oh, really? Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't understand. I mean, now the young kids, they don't like position books, and I have to try so hard to convince them. And sometimes, he just doesn't like to play. But I mean, he has perfect pitch. And I mean, because I have, my son is a little bit different because he played the cello for, since he was 5. So he played the cello for 6-7 years. So he has, perfect pitch. So he can hear things. So before, I mean, he did not even learn the position yet. And he hears all my students play Kusavisky, Bassist, and he told me 2 months ago, Mom, I want to play Kusavisky. I said, no, you have to start to learn all those positions. You don't even know where you have position, first position. So and he said, no, I'm not going to do it. So he get online, print out the Kusavisky sheet music and start to play them. And he asked for my fingerings, and he learned it, and he just wanted to concerto and play with LPO, soon. So,
that's hilarious.
I know. I mean, he is a very good example. Always reminds me how different each individual is. Mm-hmm. So I just want to try to find the best way that can work for every student. I mean, not every student is the same. There are some students, some Asia students. I have several international students. They are more dedicated, and they really want to learn. They want to be, they want to do well. So they spend a lot of time and do everything I ask them to do. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But there are a lot of undergraduate students. They are more interested in other things. So,
right. Yeah.
So everyone's different.
That's fun. What do you use out of the Petrarchy? Incorporating some of those extras, and I love that book. It's right here next to me. What are some of your favorites? I mean, there's so much in that book. Are there a few that you focus on?
Yes, I have. I put number 7, number 14, number 17. Okay. Along with my warm-up routine. I think those are very important exercise for students to play every day. The number 7, it helps you to form a natural handshake. Okay, if you practice very slowly and trying to feel the weight on each fingers on the left hand, it should help you to produce a very good quality tone and good intonation. I mean, it's a very good, it keeps eagle's claw. Okay. Right. Yeah, I mean, I used chicken's claw before. And so, I mean, just to keep a nice position, I mean, for some beginner students, they, when they don't have a good form yet,
Okay.
Okay, so I found that very useful. And number 14, it helps, the agility of the hand.
Mm-hmm.
And number 17 is more advanced. It helps you to discover all the different fingering options throughout the fingerboard.
Right.
So when I was at York Symphony, besides all the standard scales, arpeggios I had to practice, I like to use the number 17 as a guide for me to work on all the orchestra strokes.
Oh.
So in my so in my book, I have Beethoven 5 trio, the metronome numbers, and the strokes needed. Mm-hmm. So one day I will just focus on that stroke, on that number 17 dominant seventh exercise.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great way to use that. I love it. I used to do that. That was like if I was before an orchestra rehearsal or something, that number 17 is like what I would run through. And I felt like I was ready to go on the bass, but I never used it to practice like orchestra bow strokes. That's a great idea.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to explore the most efficient way for me and for the students as well. So. Oh,
cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great exercise. Yeah.
What do you do? And you were talking about shifting being like a big part of the warm up that you do and that you teach. Do you do a specific key and then you change it every day, or what do you do in terms of shifting?
Well, I start with this siren sound routine, which I squeeze all the fingers together so that it's like a big sausage finger.
Okay, sure.
And instead, and then trying to bring, to shift as if I'm bringing the weight towards my core, towards the ground to help me relax.
Okay.
So that's always a very helpful relax routine for me. And then I use the simplest, I think the simplest shifting exercise, which is always, I start with A string and I start with the half position shifting to the neck position. Okay. So that it helps you to really set where my thumb is at. You have to know where your neck position is. That's a very important target point.
Yeah. So
I start with that, and always trying to play the most beautiful, relaxed tone possible. And, of course, the biggest, richest tone. Yeah. And then I start with the neck position shifting to the thumb positions. Okay, I have been doing this routine since I was in college.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, I didn't do any other fancy shifting routines, but this is just a very simple, easy to remember routine that helps you to know where the important places is.
Yeah.
And then whenever I play the any orchestra or piece, of course there are places I don't shift in tune right away.
Right.
So, I remember it was a good habit. I kept doing that when I started to do that when I was in college. I always identify the difficult shiftings and I write them down as my warm-up routine daily.
Okay.
I mean, if I master, if it's my warm-up routine, which means I can, play without any efforts.
Right. That's cool. No, I like that. I mean, because those are like your three of your home bases on bass, right? It's like that neck position, getting into that thumb position. I like that. I gotta start trying that. That's cool.
Yeah. I mean, it's you have to know them. If you know them by heart, everything it's easier.
Yeah, for sure. So did you give I'm rewinding back to when you were younger. Did you give the graduation speech at Interlaken?
Yeah,
What? Do you remember what you talked about? And then you said you also played bass. Do you remember what you talked about or what you played? That's cool. You did that.
I remember. It was very interesting because when I graduated from Interlaken, I only spent 3 years in U.S.
Yeah.
And, the language was difficult for me and I did not like to speak and I like to play. Mm-hmm. And neither is my ways of expressing myself because when I was younger, I was very shy. I never talk. Uh-huh. So when the director of the Interlaken told me that I was selected and I was a salutatorian and I have to give a speech, I tried not to do it. And then he's like, okay, maybe you can play. I said, okay, I will play. I will just play the bass. And then his daughter, who is my English teacher, She told me, well, no, you have to prepare a speech. So she helped me to, write a speech. I write a speech. I think I can, because I memorized the whole thing.
Okay.
That's the only way I can speak in front of thousands of people. So, I mean, it was just a very frightening experience for me back then. So I remember my speech was about how difficult it has been an international student to learn a totally new language here and to still keep up with all the academic works. But however, the language is difficult, but the music is international language, and how I felt really comfortable when I play music. And then I play a Chinese song. And that was the graduation.
Oh, that's great! Wow.
Yeah. So how do you know?
That must have been so. I mean, because how was your English when you came to the States? Did you speak a little bit, or?
No, I never spoke when I was in Taiwan. Yeah, I mean, we learned the basic conversations like "Hello, how are you?" "I'm sorry." Very easy, just very easy stuff.
Sure. Yeah, that's like about the level of my Czech. We're talking about going to Prague. Like I can maybe say that. And how on earth did you? Oh, and I mean, you work with international students. Like, how you're trying to learn English while you were practicing all these hours? Like, how on earth did you even? I can't even imagine what that was like.
I didn't sleep a lot.
Okay.
I really, the first year when I was in Isomar, I mean, I have to. They give us English as second language courses.
Okay.
The homework was not that hard for the first year, so I can manage to finish all the homework by 10. And then by 10, it was boarding school, so I had to, we have to check in. And then I sneak out.
Okay. Working the system to make it. Okay, that's great.
But I was caught. Of course, I was practicing, and then it was 3 a.m, and the conductor came in for no reason, and he's like, "Why were we practicing 3 a.m?" And So, but they were going to kick us out because we did it for good reason. So they asked us not to do it again.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's great. It's cool that, and James Vandermark, I need to email him because I've been talking about getting him on the show, and he's 40 years at Eastman this year, I think.
Right.
And I know he was a big influence on you, and going to Eastman. How did you discover Vandermark and Eastman? Like, that was the next step for you. When did that become clear to you? That was what you wanted to do?
Well, when I was at Interlochen, and the students at Interlochen, they always, they are very ambitious, and they always want to, go into the top conservatories.
Yeah. And
so at that time, I really wanted to play solo. Mm-hmm. So, Juilliard Vandermark has a great reputation as a soloist, and I need someone. I mean, at that time, Stor Senki, I came to Interlochen quite often, and I really love enjoying working with him. And I mean, he is a great teacher, great influence on me. But I need someone who can really play and tell me what to do.
Yeah.
So that's why I think Eastman was a great choice for me.
Okay.
Yeah, and he is the one who really shaped my playing to what I am today.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, all the basics, all the fundamentals. I mean, I was standing when I was in Interlochen Arts Academy. Mm-hmm. And I stand when I play, and I never find the right balance. And even though I can play those pieces, but it was very painful. And he's the one who helped me to start shaping.
Okay.
And yes, that's how I started to shape.
With your students now, do some stand, do some sit? How does that work for you?
Well, I mean, they all come from different backgrounds, and some are more stubborn.
Okay.
So I will tell them and show them the advantage and pros and cons of both sitting and standing and ways to get around it. I show them the proper way of doing it. If they're coming from the background in standing, usually they still choose to stand. Then I will make sure they work on the horse stance, and so they can balance the bass well enough.
Okay.
To have the right technique. Okay. But if, for several weeks, months, the left hand, if they could not get rid of the problem, then I will recommend them to sit, to at least try how effortless the left hand needs to be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I really think all the students, they need to know how to stand and sit so they can combine the advantages of both stance.
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's amazing, like putting a student on a stool if they haven't sat down before. Yeah, that just like unlocks, especially if they're having tension in the left hand or getting into thumb position or that whole neck area. It's amazing, like what that'll do. Like for me, I sat my whole life I couldn't play standing, and I was so frustrated by that. I was like a fourth grader when I played. So finally, I just started standing I just made myself stand, and it's amazing, like how that unlocked things like for the right arm, standing, just like the weight. But yeah, it's cool. It's kind of like French and German bow, experiment. Like I know you're a French bow player predominantly. I am too. But like, it's always amazing to like experiment with the German bow and then going back to the French. It's like I've learned a couple of different ways to use the weight and that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. Right. It's very interesting because the way I sit, because, I'm short, and so I sit, so that my weight is not on the stool, because the stool becomes a tool to help me balance my weight.
Okay, yeah, for sure,
So I need to be very flexible to work around the stool. Mm-hmm. And for French bow and versus German bow as well. I mean, I because of my finger and my size, it was just difficult. And then I changed my bow grip. I think 3 years ago, I changed my thumb to place under the knees.
Oh,
more like a baseball grip.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I like it. Mm-hmm. Before, I was worried because when you hold your thumb underneath, you kind of lock your wrists. Right. So I only put my thumb underneath when I had to play monster passages in orchestra or some certain loud passage in solo repertoire. Mm-hmm. And then gradually, this 2 or 3 years, I think my playing, I'm more flexible even, and then I learn to control even better. Okay. So I find ways to use the thumb underneath to play the lyrical passages better than before then, and I feel like this is just like so comfortable for me, and I can play this forever. Oh, so
that's interesting. Well, if people haven't played around with that kind of grip, I'll go back and forth and sometimes practice that way, and it's like teaching your body like carving a new path or something, and then I go back to like a more traditional grip in it, and it's kind of like that French bow German bow thing or standing sitting. Yeah.
I changed it because I had no choice. I was playing a Brahms Second Cello Sonata, and there's no way I could hold the bow grip all the way until the end of the piece. And then, I realized, wow, I mean, this is just make everything possible. It's like opening up everything. And then, we invited Edgar Meyer the past January, and then I just realized, wow, he hold the bow underneath. It's the same bow grip. I was happy.
Yeah, and that's a great point. If Edgar Meyer is up there doing it,
I know. Yeah, it's like, okay.
Well, it's kind of like when Edgar Meyer, I think he was the first person to really like prominently put dots on his fingerboard, and all of a sudden you see Edgar Meyer doing that, and all of a sudden like every bass player's got dots on the fingerboard. It's like if Edgar could do it, yeah.
I know. It's so funny. Yeah.
I saw that you played a recital at Carnegie Hall. right? Like about 13 years ago. So how did you get that opportunity?
It's interesting stories. Well, first of all, before I performed that recital, I just gave birth to my son like 1 year ago. Mm-hmm. And, when I was pregnant, I had so much difficulty. My tummy gets so big as well, and I just couldn't play the solo repertoire for a year. I couldn't just play. There's no way. Right. So a year I did not play the bass, okay? I played the bass. I demonstrate for my students, but that's about it. Okay. So I had this opportunity to play after 6 months. My son was born. I performed several tour recitals and play concerto with the National Symphony Orchestra in Taiwan, and then met one of the music advisor, Yahui Wang, who is also the music advisor of the Formosa Chamber Music Society in New York. Actually, she was the assistant conductor in Pacific Music Festival.
Oh,
if you remember.
Sure, that right, of course. No, I do remember, yeah.
Yes, because she heard me audition in PMF back then, so she remembered me. And then, in Taiwan, I met her again. And so we are talking, and then she told me, well, she's going to, introduce me to the Formosa Chamber Music Society. And, she asked me to send the stuff to that Chamber Music Society in New York City. And then I came back to the States full start, and then they told me that there's a December concert date available in Carnegie Hall.
Okay.
And asked me if I can do it. And of course I said yes.
Yeah, right, sure, yeah.
Right, sure. Yeah, so I played. Yes.
Do you remember what you played? What was on that program?
Yeah, I think I played Schubert Arpeggione Sonata.
Okay.
Colnidre, and 2 Chinese pieces, Paganini Moses Fantasy, and maybe Davy Ellis Sonata.
Okay.
Probably that's probably it. Okay. I think. I'm not sure.
Cool. And then, when did you start playing because you play the Brahms? It's the F major, right? Sonata, is that the one? Yeah. And you recorded that on your first CD. When did you start?
Second CD.
Oh, on your second CD. I'm sorry. When did you start playing that piece? What inspired you to play that? That's a monster piece.
Yeah, I know. I love Jacqueline Dupre, so I have a lot of her CDs.
Yeah.
There are certain point in my life, there will be, some music really connected to me.
Yeah.
So several years ago, I was just so inspired to want to play that piece. Mm-hmm. So I just go ahead and do it. Whenever I start to transcribe it, I never know what's going to be like.
Yeah, sure, right.
Of course, I just love the music. I don't know. I just feel like I have to do it.
Yeah.
And then I just put it in my program, and then I'll have to perform it. That's the way it works.
Well, there's nothing amazing like playing a piece from a composer like Brahms, right? We've got great composers for the bass, but Brahms is Brahms. That's a different level.
Yes, it's great. Yeah, the life and the energy, the piece, the experience of playing the piece is just been incredible. Of course, there are a lot of very painful moments because it's very difficult and physically, and a lot of, I was almost killed. But I just, the experience, the music I experienced through performing is just unbelievable, and it makes me feel like I'm alive.
Oh. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I love those great music, and I want to understand those music. Yeah. I want to experience those music.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know that feeling. Wow. So you started at LSU in 2000, right around there. And so then 2013, was that the first year for the Bass Fest?
Yeah, well, I started a little bit earlier, maybe 2008 or 2009. It started with a much smaller bass studio recital.
Okay.
And then I started to expand a little bit more because I realized, I mean, I've been so many years at LSU, and I'm maybe the only full-time bass teacher in Louisiana, and if I don't do anything,
Right.
that's not good. I like to, do something so that, there are opportunities for my students and my, younger students and all the bass players.
Yeah.
It's been great. I just love, it's a lot of work to organizing the event, of course. But it's a major event that all my students and a lot of the bass players, local bass players are looking forward to every year.
Well, it's such a great thing to do just for the community where, like at the end, and like you're saying, it's a lot of work. I've organized 2 bass festivals, but they were like 1-day things but I mean, the amount of time I put into that 1-day event is just staggering.
I know. Yeah. It's a lot of planning and coordination. Even though it's 1 or 2 days, but there are a lot of.
So how does it look now? How has it evolved from like that 2008 till now? What does the event look like now?
Well, there are actually, because I perform a lot in Taiwan and China, so there are students overseas interested in coming in all the time to participate in the competitions.
Yeah.
So last year we have around 30-40 bass students participating. That is actually a incredible amount of number for.
That's amazing.
For our state.
Yeah, no, that's amazing.
Because and I mean they never see bass ensembles before, and just the experience of hearing everyone play and being playing in the group, to listening to the students playing the competitions and the master classes, I think it's a very positive influence.
Oh, it's so great. It's such a great thing. Well, I mean, thank you for doing that. Just for the world of the bass, even though it's a lot. And I was just in coaching at a high school here in San Francisco a couple days ago, and one of the girls in the bass section, she was at the Golden Gate Bass Camp. That's our festival out here, and she's like, I look forward to that. That's like my favorite week of the year, and it just makes such an impact on these young people.
Right, I know. Yes, right. Yes, it's very important for them, and just what we do to bring the bass players together. It just feels good. I don't know how to put it.
No, it does. It's such a, and it's so cool to, like, as you do it over the years and you see like these people who are, like what is the age range? Is it all are welcome, or are you mostly like?
Yes. All ages are welcome.
Okay.
It does not matter how old you are, as long as you love bass. Just come and play with us.
Yeah,
a lot of the younger students, they are more intimidated because they think they're not good enough.
Yeah.
But, I told them, we are here to have fun, to help you grow. We're not here to judge you. A lot of people, they're just, afraid of people's, criticize them. Or, I don't know. Yeah. So I'm trying to change that. I wanted it to be a more welcoming experience.
Yeah, totally. Well, like I remember, I did the Jeff Braditich masterclasses when I was in high school, and I remember that experience, and I remember feeling intimidated too. And then you get there, but you have there were people younger than me, and then there were adult amateurs, and then there were people that like were on the verge of winning a job, and it was just so cool the way he did that. You're all playing together. It doesn't matter if you're 14 or 68. You're going through the technique exercises. And
I know, and I also have a secondary student. He participates at like Bass Fest every year, and of course, he's not a bass major, and he graduated. He still lives in New Orleans, and before the Bass Fest, he always asks me, "Can I come back to play? And can I participate? What can I do to help?" It just makes a huge impact.
Yung-chiao, it was so great to catch up with you. And folks, check out everything she's up to at her website, yung-chiao.com. Okay, so much to share. I don't even know where to begin, but I'll start with the ISB convention coming up this June. They just announced their headliners, and I have a link at contrabassconversations.com and on my blog where you click it and it'll take you to the convention page. And I hope to see you at the ISB convention. I am looking forward to it, and I'd love to meet folks in person, so I hope to see you there. Here's the headliner lineup, okay? We've got Christian McBride, Sebastian Dubé, Mark Dresser, Rick Stottage. Is that how you pronounce his name? Stotijn. I hope that's right. Matthew McDonald, had Matthew on the podcast fairly recently. Joel Quarrington had Joel on the podcast back in the 1.0 days. Francois Rabath had him back on the very 1.0 days. And Larry Grenadier. Cool lineup for sure. So hope to see you at ISB in June 2017. It is book launch week for me, and I did a whole episode on this, the last episode, so I'll be super brief here, but Winning the Audition, the book, is available for pre-order. If you're listening to this right now, or if you're listening to this in a few days, it's available. And if you want to support the podcast in some way, that's a great way to do it. You can go to winningtheaudition.net and pick up a copy. 27 different people I interviewed. It's based on the podcast series, but way fleshed out. Ira Gold wrote a foreword for it. I've got a bonus transcription of Rob Knopper's interview from Audition Hacker. So much praise for the book already from people like Owen Lee, Andy Ricidi, Tracy Friedlander of Crushing Classical, and I'm just so thrilled to get this out there. So check it out, winningtheaudition.net. I've gotten a bunch of pre-orders already, which I'm so thankful. Thank you if you're listening to this and you pre-ordered it. I have it on my site, so you can get it in this sort of multimedia kind of ebook form. And I also include a text-only ebook with that if you want to just read it kind of more like a normal book. It's also going to be available, or available if you're listening to this in a few days, on Kindle. You can get the paperback, and you can get it in the iBooks store. So I'm trying to put it everywhere, and within a month or so, it should be available at barnesandnoble.com. It should be available pretty much anywhere you can find a book. So check that out if you haven't yet. winningtheaudition.net. DiscoverDoubleBass.com, Jeff Chalmers' site. Jeff's a friend. Jeff and I we talk in a mastermind basically every week about doing the podcast, doing courses, all that sort of stuff, which is super helpful. Jeff just relaunched DiscoverDoubleBass.com. Brand new website, looks amazing. The lessons are hosted in a different way that's really cool. Beautiful stuff. Love what Jeff's doing. He's sponsored the podcast in the past. He's doing great work. And check out the new site, discoverdoublebase.com. Jeff and I were hanging out in Prague at Bass 2016. I remember we were walking around and someone walked by and looked at both of us and said, "Hey, there's the internet," which I thought was pretty funny. So check it out. Link in the show notes. And in news from previous podcast guests, Emilio Gorino, who is part of my Entrepreneur Week, which launched September. I can't remember the episode number, but it's probably in the 250s or 60s or somewhere around there. He just released an updated version of his book, Make It. It's called Make It, A Guide for Recent Music Graduates. Great book, clear, concise, and if you haven't checked it out, check it out. Great stuff for sure, and link in the show notes for Emilio's book. And I'll link up to his episode too. If you haven't listened to it, give it a listen. Good guy, lots of great energy and great ideas about how musicians can put themselves out there, get more work, mistakes that trip people up, that sort of thing. And one more bit of news. And if you have any news to share, by the way, feedback at contrabassconversations.com. I will happily share your event, something you got coming up. Do you have a recital coming up? Are you putting something out? Are you involved in some sort of music festival and you have some news on that? I'd love to share. This is a community podcast, so let me know. And so the last bit of news for today, Bard Conservatory of Music up in beautiful upstate New York, Annandale on Hudson. I did a music festival up there disturbingly long time ago. The Baroque Conservatory of Music Double Bass Merit Scholarship. They have an application deadline of January 1st, 2017, and this covers up to full tuition, room and board for qualified bassists. And there's a link in the show notes for that. And I have so much great listener feedback to share. Thank you so much for writing in. It means so much to me. It makes me realize that there is an audience out there. It's not just me sitting here in my San Francisco abode talking to myself into a microphone. So thank you for writing in. Feedback at contrabassconversations.com will put you in touch with me. I respond to each and every single message, and I love hearing from people, where you're from, what you're up to, when you started playing the bass, guest suggestions. I think the list is approaching 400 if it hasn't gone over at this point for potential guests. I could do one of these episodes every single day and not repeat myself for years. And so thank you for writing in. Susan DeWeger, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who lives in Melbourne, Australia, wrote in, said she just wanted to say how much she enjoyed my interview with Andrew Hitz on the Entrepreneurial Musician podcast. And that was a fun talk for sure. Andrew's a great guy. I went to school at Northwestern with him. He started this podcast and he had me on as a guest. And I shared, which I do probably, if you've listened to things I've been on before, you're probably sick of this story, but my car caught fire and exploded in 2004. In dramatic fashion. I don't know if you could not be dramatic, that happening. So I kind of have my story I like to tell. And if people haven't heard it, it's a good time. And he hadn't heard it and he enjoyed it thoroughly. And we talked about other things, not just exploding cars. And Susan has a site at notablevalues.com. It's about musical entrepreneurship, which is what Andrew's Entrepreneurial Musician podcast covers. It's kind of a hot topic right now, but it's a good topic. And so check out what she's up to. Martin Plant, Plante, Martin, am I pronouncing your name right? I hope so, wrote in and suggested his teacher, Jason, and your French pronunciation, Normand Guilbeault, Guilbeault, from Montreal. He suggested him as a guest for the show. And I looked into what he's doing, and he seems like such a cool guest. So I think we're probably going to have him on the podcast soon, and I need to work on his pronunciation before I do. So thank you, Martin, for the guest suggestion. Love it. Bill Brewer wrote in. He's a late-in-life beginner. He started playing bass at 61. He's 69 now. And he says he still thinks about my old podcast with Hans Sturm from time to time, and which was I did put out as a podcast back in 2007 or 2008 maybe. Hans and I did this set of videos about the Rabath technique. They've been quite popular, lots of views on YouTube, and the most fantastically grungy videos you've seen worse, but they're pretty grungy. They're in my crappy Evanston, Illinois apartment. My cats are in the background. They're jumping around, but the content is good. That's what's important. So thank you, Bill, for writing in. Margaret Briskin wrote in. She's gigging in Central Illinois, kind of close to my home base. She's been playing bass for 40 years. And Jerry Fuller, former podcast guest, longtime friend, great bass player, early music specialist, used to play in the Lyric Opera, and he's been recently on the podcast. It was an awesome episode. Look him up, Jerry Fuller. He'll come up. Just type it into the search box on the site. And he said, love the podcast. Just listened to the one with Garrett Hope this morning. Fascinating to hear the differences in generational perspectives, i.e. Jonathan Haskell compared to Garrett. Jonathan has been playing in the Orchestra La Suisse Romande in Switzerland for decades. And then Garrett, totally different perspective. He's in the entrepreneurial musician sort of world. He's doing a podcast called The Portfolio Composer. If you haven't checked it out, that was a lot of fun. That was one of these episodes I love because we just turned on the mic and just kind of yik-yacked for 90 minutes, and we just put the unedited conversation on both our sites. And I love doing that because I spend a lot of time editing these episodes usually, especially the interview. I don't really edit this yik-yak at the end. But so thank you, Jerry. And Jerry also recommended checking out the Pink Cast. It's Dan Pink. If you haven't read any of Dan Pink's books, they're great. He's such an amazing thinker about motivation and education and all sorts of interesting and relevant topics. So Dan put out a video called Why You Should Write a Failure Resume, just sort of documenting all your failures. I love these podcasts. They're kind of podcasts. They're just short videos. Dan just turns on a camera at his desk and talks for a couple minutes. But I'll put a link to those. I'm having a good time following along with those. And thank you, Jerry, for that. And hey, if you want to email in and give me a suggestion of something I should check out, I would be so appreciative. I love that. So if you think, hey, Jason, check out this book, check out this TED Talk, whatever, feel free, please. I'd love to hear that. And I've got one more I'm going to share. I have much more listener feedback, but I'm trying not to overwhelm you with too much on each episode. Jack Vaughn of the Lean Musician podcast wrote in, and he has this. It's a fairly new podcast. It's out of the UK, and he interviewed Dave Swift of the Jules Holland Band. Dave has played with, you name it, Paul McCartney. I don't even know where to begin. Name a famous artist he's played with him. He's been doing that for decades, and I had the chance to sit down and interview Dave recently. So you're going to be hearing my episode with Dave as well. And check out The Lean Musician. It's a new podcast. Jack's doing a great job with it, and it's just exciting to see this groundswell of new music-related podcasts. I mean, when I relaunched Contrabass Conversations about a year ago, how many were there? There were not many. I think Hugh Sung had started up, Andrew Hitz had started up. Within the last 6 months, there are 25 at least. So very cool. And I'm so glad to have some company and not be the lone music arts, whatever you want to call this, podcaster. And the very last thing I want to share, and if you've made it to the end, you are a true believer, so thank you for sticking with me, and you're someone who might actually want to do this. Nobody wants to do this, but do it. It's okay. There is a voicemail line I've set up. You will not reach me. It's a Google Voice number. It's 415-952-5643. That's 415-952-5643. And that will you'll hear a message from me. And what I love is we're coming up on 10 years of the podcast. And I know that some of you have been with me for much of this journey. And whether this is episode number 1 or whether this is episode number 200 and something or whatever, I would love to hear from you. And I'm hoping to put these together into some kind of a decade anniversary episode. So give me a call. Your name, where you live, how long you played bass, where you play, when you discovered the podcast, your favorite episodes, something like that. I would love to hear from you in that form. If you have the app, if you're listening on the app, there is a button to phone in the show, and that will just call that number. So if you're using your Android phone or iPhone, just hit that button and give me a call, or just type it into your phone. One more time, 415-952-5643. That'll just go to the podcast voicemail, and I'll put those together into a 10th anniversary episode. And the 10th anniversary will be January 1st, 2017. I've got some thoughts germinating about what to do exactly as an anniversary show, but I would love to include some feedback. So thank you for listening. Thank you, Yung-chiao. So much exciting stuff happening here on the podcast and the bass world, and I'm looking forward to ISB. I hope you are too. Send me a message, hit me up on social media, and we will see you again soon for more life on the low end of the spectrum.